Joining you from Portugal. I'm in the Azores Islands. They are amazing. So here I am in Angra de Heríssimo, which is in Terceira Island. And if you haven't been here, you are totally missing out. It is the most beautiful place I've ever been to. It reminds me of the small towns in Costa de Brava in Spain that have the castle at the top of the towns. You have winding cobblestone streets. You have just beautiful stucco buildings and bright Caribbean colors. This is really a magical place. Behind me, you can see on YouTube, I have the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm staying in a castle. It's called the Posada on the island of Angra de Heríssimo. I highly recommend this place. It is fabulous. I'm on my balcony right now. We obviously do have Wi-Fi. I didn't know if I was going to be able to connect with you. Next week, I'm going to be in Portugal. If I have Wi-Fi, I'll be there. If I don't, I won't. I wanted to share with you this experience because you're really at the drawing board with me. Over the summers is when I'm most innovating when it comes to practice. And that's because this is kind of when I put a quilt together. Over the school year, I've been gathering all of these ideas and all of this research. Like the article I'm going to share with you today is a gem. And I have these great swatches of fabric. And over the summer, what I do with these swatches of fabric is I put them together in a meaningful manner. I look at the big picture, kind of like when you're building a quilt, and what is the star I want to put on this quilt? And what is the hexagon shape I want to put around it? And what fabrics do I want? How do I want it to come together? Then after that, I roll up my sleeves and you do the labor and the time, you weave it together. Then when the new school year begins, I'm able to take it and put it into practice. The quilt is ready to be used. You're ready to put it on the bed. You're ready to put it to use. That is the process I go through over the summer. You're not going to see me on social media a lot because this is really a time in which I'm doing a lot of innovation, a lot of reflection on practice. I really have to devote myself to that and not be using my energy in other directions. So during my vacation times, I have literally a suitcase full of research articles, a very, very heavy suitcase. I read mounds of research and then I go and I tease it out and I create the quilt. I think it's important you're with me in this process behind the scenes or of what I'm doing behind the scenes right now. So this is the article I want to share with you. Check it out on Google Scholar. It's a great article. It's called Photographs and Parent Training to Support Conversations About Past Events Between Caregivers and Children with Autism. It's written by Naima Bana and co-authors. This was published in April of 2023. Go ahead and check this out on Google Scholar. I'll leave the citation in the show notes. Now, this article is only an article about 3 children with autism and their parents, which is really common in autism research. Unfortunately, a lot of it is single case studies. However, the article is very well written. And the article really spells out the procedure they used in parent training and how they use the photographs so you could replicate this and do this in your practice. I don't encourage you to replicate it, though. I encourage you to DSD, do something different. This is a visual of how you can do something different. If you were to go and read this article, you take notes from the article. Then you look at what the author did, and you fold your piece of white paper in half. And on the right side of that, you write how you would do something different. For instance, maybe the author worked with preschoolers, and maybe you work with elementary age children. So what would you do differently with elementary age than you would with preschool age children? Or the author used telepractice. Maybe you don't use telepractice. How would you do this differently in person? How would you do this synchronously? So you always DSD on the right side to take what the author did and up-level it. And not only to up-level it, to make it work with your back porch, with your kiddos that you work with and with your situation and how to make it most effective. I'm one that takes from other people's works and I'm one that changes it and makes it work for my population and my back porch. And I encourage you to do the same, okay? So let's jump into this article and what we can get from this article and how it can change your practice or up-level your practice. The first thing I love about this article is how they did the telepractice model. We're suddenly into telepractice. And a lot of students, what they report is they were never taught how to do telepractice in college. A lot of professionals report that too. I don't know how to do telepractice. I was just Given Zoom, okay, go ahead and do it. Or do what you would normally do in a normal therapy session. Well, it's like normally I use lots of toys and it's really hands-on, but now we're looking through a screen. So things have changed. So you can't really do in telepractice what you would normally do in a session. Something has to change. So what she's talking about with parent education through a telepractice model, what this author did is I'm going to give you this 4-step process. I encourage you to try this. I'm going to base my telepractice parent education off of this model. Okay. The first thing she did is instruct. So she had a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation that showed 4 parent communication strategies, and she used an acronym to make it memorable. She explained it in parent-friendly language. Her acronym was M.O.R.E. First, she told the parents to model the language for the letter M. Then she told them O, which is offer opportunities for the child to use the language by asking the child a question. Well, maybe some of you are like, I don't like asking the children questions. I instead like to make it as a statement. Like, I wonder who, I wonder what, I wonder why, by putting I wonder in front of it. Maybe that's your way of doing something different. But nonetheless, her O was she offers an opportunity to speak. The author's R was to respond. So when you respond, you either respond to the child's communication or you respond because the child did not communicate. You model a response if the child doesn't communicate. Then she had E, and E is to expand. So the child gives you a sentence, you're going to add and maybe turn it into a complex sentences because complex sentences are so powerful. That was her acronym that she used to teach the parents, which was very smart. M.O.R.E. Remember M.O.R.E. These are the 4 steps. I think that's brilliant, great work by the author. That's something we can learn from. So first she taught that strategy, that 4-step strategy, using a 30-minute PowerPoint show through telepractice, a Zoom telepractice. Then after that, she modeled it by showing digital tapes. And these are kind of like my books. They are very effective. In my book, Speech Sound Disorders, there's over 100 actual tapes modeling each of these strategies that we're discussing, that I'm sharing the research on. Here it is in action right afterwards, so you can see it and you can evaluate it. Very good practice. So first you have the PowerPoint slideshow. Then you see a videotape of another parent using it with a child as an example. The next thing we have is a rehearsal. For that, she asked parents to do a 3-minute clip and to share that with them, in which they're showing the child a photograph and they're using the M.O.R.E. technique. They're modeling the language, then they're offering an opportunity to speak by asking a question, then they're responding. They're responding if the child doesn't answer the question in 5 seconds, or they're responding to the child's natural question naturally and expanding upon it. So you're turning a sentence into a complex sentence, for instance. She asked the parents to videotape a 3-minute clip of them doing that with the child seated at a table, and you have the picture right there for reference. Then the parent shared that video clip of 3 minutes with the speech pathologist to go ahead and give step 4. Step 4 is they provided feedback, and the feedback was emphasizing the strengths of the interaction, what was really, really working, and providing some suggestions on how they could further improve the interactions. That was the 4-step process they used with these 3 dyads. So like I said, when you look at this research, this is 3 children. This is a single case study. What they found in this single case study is when they added the photographs to the interaction, they had better use of the interaction strategies, and the children answered more questions. That tells me something. Even though this is only 3 children, that says I'm going to write in my left column on this piece of paper, try using photographs off the phone. Suggest that to parents to look at photographs off of the phone and to use the language strategies and apply them to photographs on your phone of fun events that happened that day, for instance, okay, at the end of the day. I'm like, I like this. I can see how I can use this every day as the end of the day review, and you talk about something you did that day that you captured on the phone. I think that's really cool. That was one thing that I liked about this research study. Another thing that was important about this research study, even though it's really, really small, they're just planting a seed, but we can really learn a lot from it, is they had a really good technique. It's like, this is solid, this is evidence-based. They looked at other research of first instructing them and giving them the information. After that, modeling it so they can see it in action. Then after that, asking them to try it out and then giving them feedback. This is an evidence-based strategy that's shown that this works. Let's use this in parent telepractice as a method. I like that, these 4-step processes. So of course, that's going to be on the left column that I'm going to write when it comes to parent telepractice in AAC. I'm going to take that 4-step process. I'm going to go and work with that and do something different with that and see how could I make that work in this context with these children, and how would I do it differently and make it better? After every single therapy session, I've always asked every single one, how could we have done this better? And when you stop asking that question, you simply stop learning. This method was effective with all 3 parents when they went through this 4-step process. Over the 5 sessions, they did improve in their use of these 4 strategies of modeling, of offering opportunities to speak, of responding, and of expanding the child's utterances. So it was effective for these 3 parents. And lastly, the parents preferred the telepractice model over going into a clinic. And the reasons they gave for that is because they said the child was in their natural setting, so they were much more comfortable looking at the phone than being in a clinic and looking at pictures in a clinic. The parents also reported that you more easily cancel an appointment if something comes up and rearrange the appointment. Telepractice gives you that flexibility in terms of time when there's other demands. And we know that parents of children with autism, they have a lot on their plate. So the parents really liked this parent training delivered during telepractice. Is this only 3 students? Yes, this only applies to 3 students at the end of the day. However, what I want you to do is check out this article, because the article is very rich in providing directions in how we can do best practice. And what I find is promising are there's 3 things that are promising. Number 1, I find to be promising is the use of photographs. A lot of the parents in this article reported that afterwards they used photographs from their phone naturally throughout the day, and they would go up to their child, even though that wasn't part of the intervention, and they would do the M.O.R.E technique on the phones while they're sitting and waiting for something. You have some downtime. So this strategy really did have generalization throughout the child's day. I love this. This is a keeper. The second thing I really liked about this strategy is the 4-step process and how to do parent training through telepractice. It's very well constructed, it's very well defined, and they also have a very nice empirical support for every step of the process and why they're taking this approach. The third area I really like about this approach is the M.O.R.E technique. The acronym is simply so easy to remember. Do more. How can you do more? M, model. O, offer opportunity to speak. R, respond. E, expand. That's so simple to remember. They really knocked it out of the ballpark with this. So I encourage you to check out this article. I'm going to leave the citation, of course, at the bottom of the show notes. And if you haven't, make sure to join me at the drawing board in the SIS membership. That's where that's where the quilts are. So over the summer, I do a lot of sewing and I do a lot of putting the fabrics together, and you're with me here behind the scenes as well. And I share with you the work, of course, every week. The quilts are, that's the end process. The quilts are the SIS membership. Now, the SIS membership is what I use with all of my students practically. There are a couple who are still sensory-based, where we're still doing sensory activities, and that's okay. Typically, those students, the following year, after having their sensory needs met, after having some basic goal-oriented, purposeful movement accomplished, these milestones accomplished, they jump into the SIS activities, and they have great outcomes. They just take a little longer to get there. But if you haven't checked out the SIS membership, I highly recommend you do that. and be with me at the drawing board 52 weeks out of the year. I'm there with my sis members. And like I said, over the summer, thank you for being with me here in Portugal, which is incredible. Make sure to check this place out. It is the best. I will see you maybe next week. Maybe I won't. If my hotel has Wi-Fi, I'm there. If it doesn't, I'm not going to be there. But please know that I am with you at the drawing board every step of the way. So I want you to take all of this information. I want you to roll up your sleeves, and I want you to make the world a better place, one child at a time, and know that you will always be first.